Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 30th of June 2021, and just thought I'd give another little talk really rather than coming out with ideas. And as the title of this video would suggest, this is about the options we face going forward from here. And I've actually considered all of these options myself in some of them, or most of them, in sort of fairly good amounts of depth, and I'd just like to run them by you, see what you think, and see if you've kind of come up with any other options other than these. I've actually got 7 of them. Now, the first one is basically we do nothing. We hope that this Javid guy is true to his word and that he really does mean that he's going to do everything he can to get back to normal as quickly as possible, and that in 2, 3, 4 months' time this will all be a sort of a bad memory and we will be pretty much back to normal by then, with no masks, no social distancing, plenty of foreign travel if you want to, and everything else as it was up until March of last year. And well, it'd be nice to think you'd be able to do that, but I think also that if I presented that as a serious option in my head, you'd be all throwing rotten tomatoes at me in your imaginations. I can sort of see that. So we know that's not an option we can consider on 16 months now of this nonsense we've been enduring. And can you see it ending anytime soon and going back to normal? I don't think I can. Option number 2, and this is almost the total opposite, and it would be to get, I don't know, a few dozen or maybe a few hundred, perhaps a couple of thousand of us like-minded souls, and we just take off, go somewhere remote, buy an island or buy some land in a remote location somewhere, and just completely build our own community kind of far away from mainstream society. And we'd have our own farms, our own obviously our own land, own farms, own hospitals with doctors and nurses who we could poach from all of those who are reportedly leaving the November Hotel Sierra. And we can have our own schools and just be completely independent. And if it could be in a warm country, so that we didn't have to sort of worry about cold winters as well, and that would be a dream, wouldn't it? That would be an absolute dream. No sort of none of that, no social distancing, no passports, no nothing, apart from just all of us just being able to get on with our lives, free to live them how we want to. And that is a dream. I've considered that, but again, it's probably not practical. I mean, for instance, it'd need, or for starters rather, it'd need a heck of a lot of organisation. We'd have to sort of buy up land, we'd have to sort of get all the people together, sort of probably draw up kind of legal contracts left, right and centre, and it's a sort of a lot to do, hell of a lot to do. And I think especially if we went abroad as well, there'd be new language to learn, and I think there's just too many obstacles with that, and there's quite a few of us aren't really getting any younger, not exactly spring chickens. Do we really want to be sort of having a life of hard work, kind of tending the land, sort of, growing our own food and all this kind of thing. So as tempting as that option is, I don't think it's really workable in real life. So where does that leave us? There's kind of two opposite extremes, and there's a few positions in the middle that we could consider as well. This next one is something that I'd call the nomad sort of situation. Basically, either as a community or as individuals, we just kind of sell up, and I'm probably looking at this more from an individual point of view. We kind of sell up absolutely everything, kind of put the money somewhere as safe as it can be, which God knows what that would be in this day and age, but somewhere where you could sort of draw upon it and to live on for hopefully the rest of your life, which might be feasible if you kind of then took yourself to sort of Far Eastern countries and Central American countries where cost of living is cheap, and you could go to somewhere like, I don't know, let's say Costa Rica, which is a place I've considered actually, and you could rent a place very, very cheaply, maybe on a kind of a 3-month lease, and you'd just be keeping your ear very close to the ground every day. And if kind of conditions there started deteriorating in any way, they started talking about lockdowns there, hopefully you could soon pack up your minimalist belongings, get it crated up into the back of a transit van, get it sort of transported to wherever, and hop on some kind of plane and take off to another country where they're not looking at doing that kind of thing, and so on. Just re-evaluating your position every 3 months and either staying put or taking off as necessary. So that's an option, but in these days of kind of increasing travel restrictions, probably not really feasible in the long term. Also, it'd be, you're forever kind of almost living out of a suitcase, aren't you? It'd be very temporary lifestyle. You're not putting down roots anywhere, not getting to know anywhere sort of locally in any great depth, and I think ultimately it'd be not really a great existence. And also, if we keep letting things slide as they look like they're going, how long would it be until you sort of run out of places to run to? So, but that was another option I considered. Just looking at, I've got all these things here actually, so just looking down there. So the next one I've considered is what I call the subsistence farmer option. So basically you take yourself away, again somewhere remote, probably in this country, could be somewhere else, and you buy up some land, enough to just sort of keep you and your family. Don't know how much that would be. I've got no idea how much land you need to sustain yourself and a family. Let's call it an acre. You sort of buy up an acre of land and a dwelling somewhere hopefully that's cheap and you can afford, and you just grow everything that you need. You might be able to sort of produce surplus which you can then trade to be able to afford some luxuries, but that would be basically your sort of existence for the rest of your life. And that's possibly a good option, but what happens if you need, I don't know, medical assistance or some other help from wider society, and you've kind of totally cut yourself off? So you probably wouldn't be able to be 100% self-sufficient. You'd have some kind of degree of interaction with wider society, and if that wider society is highly restricted, again there could be problems there. So our next option is, well, the next option would be what I'd call the networker option. So basically you kind of stay put in your own place, wherever you're living now, and you just grow a network of sort of people nearby who you can kind of turn to and rely on for your various needs. And you could use Stand in the Park as maybe a starting point, and then kind of have the equivalent of Stand in the Park for everything from like a local food network to maybe a sort of a local educational network, a local medical network, where you could get together with sort of sort of qualified professionals such as nurses, maybe even a doctor if you're lucky, where you could go and get that kind of treatment if you need it, and then just sort of branch out and grow yourself a little support network. So that's another option, and that's probably getting a bit more serious and sort of something that could work out. The next one is what I'd call the sort of prepper option. So you kind of, it's a little bit like the subsistence one, but perhaps just a little bit more suitable if you're kind of in a urban or suburban environment. So you've got your sort of prepping supplies, enough food for probably at least a year, lots of medical supplies, lots of sort of drinking water, and everything else that you might need to sustain yourself independently if you need to for a good long while, however long it takes really. The only problem I can see with that, you'd probably need a fairly big place to store all the stuff, and you'd have to be highly organised and methodical to kind of keep track of all your supplies, which might not necessarily be your strong point if you're not a particularly methodical person. And also you got the problems of security, and if things get really bad, people might come and raid your sources of supply and that kind of thing. And finally, what happens if a very bad situation kind of outlasts your food supplies? Then you're back at square one, unless you sort of learn some foraging skills and this sort of thing as well. So that is kind of another option for you. And the last option is what I call the fighter option, and that is just we fight this basically. We kind of just do what we can do to make sure that the nightmare scenario that could be coming our way just doesn't happen. So we just keep on doing what we're doing, and as far as I'm concerned, making these sort of videos and kind of going to Stand in the Park things, and maybe organising sort of things like demonstrations and whatever else it really would take to kick this whole problem into touch. So 7 options, and I think realistically I'm going to be looking at a combination of some of those last few things, probably probably a sort of combination of subsistence farmer, just growing a few sort of bits of food in the garden, plus combining that with prepper, combining that with networker, and finally with fighter, and just putting those 4 things together and trying to eke out some kind of life going forward. So that's been my thoughts on this, the options we have going forward. I might have completely missed one out, so if you can think of anything else that I haven't talked about here, please let us know in the comment section below. But I just thought I'd share some thoughts. As I say, I've been thinking about all this kind of stuff for ages, all the way from kind of late summer, early autumn last year, all the way through to now. And I've considered all of these things in quite some depth now. And yeah, like I say, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that. Be back tomorrow. Tim from Fair Play Now. Thanks for watching.